A warm welcome to all of you. Uh, my name is Vijay, and for close to 3 decades, I've been chronicling enterprise technology and telling the stories of business change. Today, I'm in conversation with Avinash Joshi, Chief Executive Officer of NTT's India business, a veteran from the industry. Avinash has over 3 decades of experience, 18 years of which were spent in IBM. What we're going to talk about today, our conversation is going to be about what Avinash's perceptions are about changing customer needs, the impact of legacy on digital transformation and future enterprise roadmaps, and even the role of design thinking, a subject that Avinash is very, very passionate about. Avinash, welcome.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate you spending your time with me today. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. So you've been in NTT now for just about a year. You joined last January to address changing customer needs. One of the critical features and traits and attributes that organizations need is to learn and unlearn and relearn so much. So, how are you looking at skill and talent transformation to keep NTT relevant to its customers?
Well, that's a great question, and one of the topic I feel very strongly about. I think the whole idea of skills and learning and unlearning. I mean, it's so important. I think not only for us at NTT, but I think we as a country, in my opinion, because of the demographics what we have, the advent of technologies happening, and the amount of different new uh, things come into being where we all will have to adapt and adopt. Uh, to me, I think there is no other option but to keep learning new things. Uh, and of course, there is only so much you can absorb. So sometimes you will have to make a conscious call of unlearning few things and then acquire the new skills. I mean, to me, I keep saying that the skills is a new currency. I also genuinely believe that going forward, all of us will go actually for skills rather than the qualifications. Now, this is not to say that qualification is not important. I mean, the degree and knowledge and everything else that which comes with that is important. But I think skills, having the relevant skills, will make a significant difference. I think to organization and to me, the skills and the talent, they're really like intertwined. I mean, the whole talent transformation cannot happen unless you focus on skills. One of the reason why talent will remain with you as an organization is only when the talent uh, thinks that there is enough and more scope here for me to learn something. I mean, apart from, of course, there will be salary and a work environment and few other things, but if you do not you know give them this intellectual stimulus in terms of learning something new every now and then, they will lose interest. They will get bored. So I think to that extent, we got to really look at talent transformation and skills together. One of the thing which we are doing at NTT, and I look at it, at a two different levels. I mean, me as a leader, what I need to make sure that we create an environment and a culture of continuous learning. As a CEO, I want to make sure that I divert necessary funds and investments so that people can invest in the tools and technologies and platforms for them to learn. So I think as a CEO and a senior leadership team of mine, we make sure that there is enough and more environment, efforts, investments done so that people have an opportunity to learn. And then I guess then there is an onus on all of us as people. I mean, for to me as an individual, that I take advantage of that environment and technologies and platforms and go and actually learn and then practice that learning sooner. Otherwise, I will forget. So I think then we need to really have a culture of learning. So then, like for example, we we have done a lot of partnerships in the market right now, trying to acquire those skills. We dedicate certain amount of hours and days in a particular quarter or a period so that people can allocate that time to learn something. But it's not that you are learning only when you are doing that particular 2-day course. I mean, I think you got to have a culture of your continuously learning. I mean, you and me are having this conversation, and just few minutes back, we are having a lunch, and I learned something about one of the Japanese manufacturer from you. And I think that intellectual curiosity is what I mean. I hope in NTT we will keep driving. But I personally, always want to make sure that I keep learning, and whatever I learn, I keep sharing with others.
Fantastic. That's one kind of transformation that I'm really interested in. What happens within an organization, right? The other kind of transformation, Avinash, is what's happening with your clients, right? So, on the one hand, Indian organizations have legacy, which is data, systems, people, processes. And on the other hand, there's a host of new technologies that they can experiment with, take their business goals forward, like from cloud to the edge to 5G to artificial intelligence to IoT. How can all this come together, legacy as well as new technologies, to fuel a roadmap for their digital futures?
I think all of us need to recognize that uh, as a part of the evolving process, there always will be legacy. What you think is a cutting edge today is going to become legacy tomorrow. So, you know, again, at a cultural level, we have to make sure that as an organization, we take that into consideration, and then keep upgrading our environment skills. Right now, to back to your question about in front of client, or, how can that come together? I mean, there are a couple of ways this can get addressed. One is, of course, client themselves. If they kind of focus on what is their business strategy, what is the business need of their client they're trying to address, can they keep their client and their employees at the center of what they are doing, then probably that will drive a lot of what they want to do. And once they get that clarity, then I think there are technologies which will help. I mean, the whole pandemic taught us about the whole, working from home and hybrid, and then suddenly you saw a lot more adoption on cloud technologies. The work from home concept. Companies were getting geared up for, let's say, 10 branches, and they were setting up their network for 10 offices. Suddenly now, because everybody was working from home, those 10 offices actually became 5,000 offices. And then you adopt to that, how do you tackle security and things like that. So my point, I think, is that if clients and us as an enterprise in entity, if we keep client and our employees at the center of everything what we do, then I think that will drive us in terms of what is expected, right? The other aspect which I believe our clients can do, and we also want to do that for our own clients, is really focus on experience. If you focus on everybody's experience, then I think you will start taking actions to positively influence that experience. I mean, in our one of our internal communication, I said that if I had my way, I would. And you introduced me as a chief executive officer. I hope at some point in time you will introduce me as a chief experience officer of NTT, because I think that's that's how important the whole experience part is. And the technologies are there to help you with a number of different things, but I think everybody needs to be clear that how is that going to help the experience part. If we focus on that, I guess this will fall in place. And of course, then you got to be on a continuous improvement basis. Like I said, I mean, what is today cutting edge is going to become legacy tomorrow. So how do you have a business design, how do you have a architecture, technology architecture, how do you have a culture where you keep evolving faster in an agile manner, and kind of get a right balance of speed and perfection, right? I mean, I think that's if that makes sense.
Of course, of course. The other kind of transformation that's happened within NTT is the integration with entity data. What is NTT doing to create maximum value out of this merger?
Oh, that's, I mean, I will now talk for about 2 hours on this topic, looks like. But look, I think if I step back a little bit, now NTT as a group, and now, it's a public information that the new brand is NTT Data. Now we are globally, probably number fifth or number sixth in terms of IT services company. Um, we have tremendous amount of uh, pace of skills and talents in India as a combined entity. I really cannot think of any other IT services company who can have as comprehensive portfolio as we have. I mean, right from industry knowledge, applications, infrastructure on which that application will sit, the hosting in which that infrastructure will be done, how do you connect all that, and how do you secure all that. I think we are the only company today which can offer this end-to-end portfolio. Now, what we have done is, and that's where I think my earlier comment about speed and perfection. While the merger in terms of legal takes some time because of multiple countries and multiple legal entities and and have identified 50 important clients, we believe that we can serve them best if we come together. And so we have broken those organizational walls and legal entity walls and have started coming together, have formed a common team which is now addressing or calling on these clients to say, does not matter in which legal entities I sit, but I'm responsible for bringing whole of entity in front of you. And we want to make sure that, I mean, we would hope that you would take all of this from us, but it's not must. I mean, if you think that based on your strategy that you want to engage with us in a particular part and start there, we will start there. There is nothing called small client or a large client. Client is a client, technology is a technology, user experience is user experience, and that's what we will focus on. You would see probably more about this in coming days to come back in coming days, but suffice to say that uh, NTT in India has the largest workforce uh, in the entity world. So I think we all, as an Indian, citizen, should be very proud that we have that kind of commitment. We have gone on record again on our data center business, making huge commitment in terms of our investments. We continue to focus on areas like sustainability collectively. Uh, you know, I do believe that we are socially very responsible, and we want to become even more socially responsible company, where people really should feel that here's an environment where we can go and then kind of grow, flourish, learn, and at times there could be a disagreement, and that's required. I think you require that alternate point of view to be respected by everybody, and we will certainly go for that culture where we are very inclusive about the different aspects of both business and personal.
Now, Avinash, you talked about two or three things which I just want to bring together and increase focus there. You talked about how you're so committed to creating this culture of continuous learning, right? So that not only do you stay relevant to what your clients require, but stay relevant to what your employees want, right? The second thing you talked about would much rather be chief experience officer rather than chief executive officer. Now, a critical part of that journey, regardless of whether that's about experience or executive decisions, is needing to motivate, inspire your team. How are you going about this? And the reason why I'm specifically asking is because, like a lot of organizations which are in India, we now have more generations at work than ever before. You have some really young people, you have very experienced people, and it isn't a one size fits all the way you would approach it. How are you approaching this?
First of all, we all have to recognize, and I certainly do, is people are smart. Now people may not say that on your face if they don't agree with you or if they have a different opinion, but don't take them granted that, oh, just because they didn't say anything, that means you kind of ran your way through and now they are convinced. That's not the case. People are very intelligent, smart, useful, they're learned, and given the technology, I think most of the time they know about the subject even before you have started talking about it. So I think that acknowledgement is important. Now why I'm saying that acknowledgement is important, so that you know we as a company, as a culture, as an executive, as a professional, got to be very transparent. We got to be very transparent in terms of what's possible, what's not possible, what we are doing about it, what we can't do about it. Give them show them the reality, but give them the hope. I think one of the you know duty of any responsible leader is this: that be very honest, candid, transparent. But at the same time, also if things are not working well, tell them that this is the game plan and this is what you are working on, and nothing is kind of completely bad, but this is work in progress. I think that transparency is absolutely important. So one of the things which in last 12 months we started doing is we kind of identified three goals for our organization. And we said that everything what we do, as long as it is supporting one of the three, we will go for it. If we are doing something which is not supporting any one of the three, we will not do. And what are those three? One is we really want to see that can we become the best employer across the industries. So can we really become an employer by choice across the industry? That will go back to then how transparent we are, what environment, what policies, what culture we do, right? I mean the respect for everybody, right? I mean that. So we really want the team entity to be extremely happy working with entity. The second goal we said is that can we can we really go to a position where people will look at the experience they get from us as a benchmark experience. So, for example, today we always talk about, oh, look at the design of Apple phone. You look at, give me an Uber-like experience, give me a Netflix-like experience. Can people say in the enterprise services world, IT services world, give me entity-like experience? So we aspire to become the benchmark. We don't want to become the best. We want to become the benchmark in this in a positive way. So that's I think the second part. And third is I think whenever you all hang up our boards, the legacy we want to leave behind is that can we be famous for best skills in the industry? Whatever those skills are, I mean, so it's like if you happen to talk to somebody and then somebody saying that, well, I'm not getting this security skills or cloud skills, it should come very naturally for you to tell them, what, I was having this conversation with these guys in NTT and I spoke to Avinash, and why don't you check with them? They have the best skills in the industry. I mean, so can we reach to these three? So I think this is really how we are wanting to drive the whole conversation about. And then of course it goes back to then respond to both clients and our employees on time. Even if you're not able to respond, tell them that the reason why you're not able to respond and go back. And let me be honest here that we are far from being perfect. We are work in progress. We have a strong intent that I'm convinced about. Do we have a strong execution yet in the place? Well, not. But just to indicate something, right? Our our NPS, net promoter score for client, is 80, and that's I have not seen that high net promoter score. Now what we are looking at is, okay, this is across some certain sample, and I think that's a reasonable sample, but still we want to see that can we increase the sample size and still maintain 80, because with having an 80 NPS, the only way you can go from there is down. So how do you make sure that you still remain at 80, and then but increase the sample size, right? That will all so one is that, I mean, our employee engagement score is highest within the entity world in India. I mean, the results came out very recently, and part of the feedback we get is that, well, we have improved in our transparency, we have improved in our the policies, the communication skills, and also a lot more interaction with management. So I mean, in first 28 days of me joining here, I met 25 clients, and I met roughly 250 plus NTTNs. And I'm not talking about a town hall of 200 people. I'm talking about like a round table with 8 guys or a lunch or something, right? I think that connect with people is very important. And I encourage, I mean, one of the things which everybody to go and talk to my boss directly so that they get a visibility. And similarly, I go and talk to in one level further down and just have this direct connect. I think sometimes you got to break these hierarchies and make everybody comfortable that it's all right for people to talk crisscross. Does not matter in what level you are in an organization, so that you are making yourself heard. And I can't tell you, Vijay, that the kind of insight you get by wandering around, by just having a cup of coffee with a newly joined person, and then they have so much ideas. Sometimes they tell you what's wrong, what we got to fix. I think when you do that consistently, when you do that across larger number of people or executives, then I think people see through. They don't trust you just because you say it. That's where it goes. People are smart. They want to validate, so they will wait for an evidence. And you got to be so as a result, you got to step back and then see, do I have really that as an intention? And if I have that as an intention, then demonstrate that by acting. And that's really what we are doing. I mean, I people are responding very well. I do see that, and that does not mean that we don't want to be measuring performance, or I mean, all that has to happen in a commercial enterprise. But I think this human angle of transparency, empathy, alternate point of view, respect, is what we absolutely trust and believe.
Now, you are known to be passionate about design thinking. And I think that is actually the missing link between selling a solution and solving a problem. Right? A lot of organizations that are in the service sector focus a lot on selling a solution or set of solutions, and not so much on actually solving a client's problem, right? How do you think this can be used? Design thinking can be used by Indian organizations to really further the digital agenda? Because what I've seen, particularly over the last maybe 8 to 10 years, is that there's a lot of absorption of digital technologies, but there's very little business transformation that results, right? And I think there is a gap out there that design thinking could fix. What do you think about this?
Bit of a background. So design thinking is one of those things which I started doing during this pandemic days, because for at some point in time you want to go away from your official video calls and learn really something, right? And that's how I started doing a course. And what I realized is that design thinking is a lot of common sense. However, with a programmatic technique wrapped around it, so that you do this as a method in madness. Now there are two aspects. One is the technique of design thinking itself, and I think that's fabulous. I mean, there are these 8 steps you take, and then you start with the the persona in mind whom you want to really make a difference to, and then decide what the aspiration is, what the goal is. Then test the hypothesis, and then convert that into a kind of a pilot, and then if it is successful, then start extending, right? And like I said, there are steps and there are techniques around that. But I think what was most appealing to me in that whole design thinking process is, whom do you put at the center of this? Okay, and so you put your client at the center of this, and your client is not necessarily every time your commercial client. I mean, sometimes your client is your boss, and sometimes your client is your teammate, sometimes your client is the support function, sometimes your client is government, sometimes it depends on situation. But my point is, if you put that at the center, and you must have this clarity of thought that, who am I doing this for? And if that clarity as a leader, if you drive that, look, in this particular situation, who is the stakeholder you are trying to address need, then of course you use all the techniques. And sometimes I think techniques, even if you deviate a little bit, I think it is okay. But what you can't deviate is, who are you doing this for? That clarity of thought. For example, if Indian organizations, I mean, both, of course, the technology part of it and business part of it, if they truly focus on the experience of their stakeholders, right, and then work backwards from there, then I think there is everything under the sun in terms of technology world is available. Then you can leverage insights, data analytics, alternate channels open, whatever, right? And you could do that. But I think you must keep the quote unquote client at the center of this, and then work around everything else, right? I mean, I think that's really what. And the good part about that, what I started realizing is that you can literally apply that situation of design thinking or technique to everything on a day-to-day basis. Everything on a day-to-day basis. Not that for that every time you got to get into a conference room and stick the post-its or get the charts or something. Not necessarily. I mean, it's a way of working, right? And if you know enough about it, then it starts happening automatically without you realizing that you are applying a design technique or design thinking technique or principle. So that's where it is, Vijay.
Correct. Fantastic. I know you're very pressed for time, so thank you so much for taking these times. I'm so glad we were able to cover such a wide swath of areas, topics today. Hopefully, the next time we are together and you hand me your card, the E in CEO would have actually turned to experience. But thank you so much. I'm extremely glad you were able to talk about not only the transformation that NTT is undergoing right now, why it is being done, but also the kind of transformation you expect to see translate into your clients' lives as well. And I think that's what makes things challenging and interesting and relevant. What's going to change? How is it changing? Why is it changing? I think answering those questions and getting a lead on that's what I'm really, really grateful to you for giving us such candid responses to. So thank you so much, Avinash, for this.
You are very welcome, Vijay. And thank you so much, like I said, once again, for having me over. It indeed was a pleasure having a conversation with you. And thank you so much again.
Righto. So you have been listening to me, Vijay Ramachandran, in conversation with Avinash Joshi, at present the Chief Executive Officer of NTT, the India Services of NTT. So I'm hopeful that this conversation was of value to you. You will get able to get a better sense of where Avinash is coming from, where NTT is coming from, and where they are planning to head to. Thank you so much. Stay safe, stay positive, and always focus on change.